nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to the Managing Madrid podcast. I'm your host, Kiyan Sabati. Oh my God, this is a ironic laugh. It's not a feel-good laugh. I just burst out laughing for a second there because I was about to say welcome to tonight's therapy session. And then I remembered, like, how many times have we actually said that after a game this season? At least a couple, right? Welcome to tonight's therapy session. Beverage of choice tonight, as usual, is a Perrier. Today we got Forever Lemon flavor. Hope whatever you guys are drinking tonight, it's safe and it brings you some solace to a disastrous Real Madrid performance. We're going to break this down. We're recording this, I don't know, like 20 minutes after the final whistle. Chat is popping off. Welcome to those of you guys who are live on YouTube. First thing is first. Tonight we are rocking Zinedine Zidane, France. He has a full head of hair here. Jesus. Full head of hair. And he's rocking the France shirt. This is right now my kids' favorite player. They love Zidane. And I got one for myself. I got one for each of my sons. So the three of us have one. I'm very excited for us all to wear it at the same time. If you guys like these, you can go to moji-mates.com. And you can use that code on the screen right there, MM15 off, for 15% off. That discount is only for Managing Madrid listeners, obviously. You can see on the webpage here, they got a bunch of cool stuff. All your favorite players. You choose from a bunch of different designs. It's just awesome. Like, a lot of cool stuff for you and your family. Highly recommend. Very comfortable. Go to moji-mates.com. Use code MM15 off for 15% off for Managing Madrid listeners. All right, let's get to the real stuff. Enough delaying the inevitable. So, I'm not entirely sure where to start. So I'm just going to go off the cuff here, and whatever's on my mind, I'm just going to blurt it out. There are a lot of times throughout, not even just Real Madrid's recent history, throughout their entire history, but I guess in particular Real Madrid's recent history. And I hate to bring this up. I really do. I hate to do it, not because it's wrong to say it, but because there's no point in saying it because we've said it so many times this season. But I'm going to say it, hopefully for the last time this season. Toni Kroos once said in 2018, it was after a Bayern Munich game away in the Champions League where our backs were against the wall. I think it was 2018. And we found a way to win. And he said after the game, it doesn't matter what situation we're in. Doesn't matter how hostile the atmosphere is. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. Doesn't matter how hostile the atmosphere is. It doesn't matter how difficult the situation is. If we're losing, winning, tied, we know how to stay composed because we've been through this so many times. So it's not actually uncommon for Real Madrid to play badly. We all know this by now, especially that's fresh in our minds. We haven't played good all season, really, bar a couple games, a couple halves, however you want to spin it. But today I found it was like the opposite of Real Madrid in the sense that there was no reaction. There was no fight. There wasn't that composure, those cool heads that we're used to seeing when you're losing. And especially in the Champions League in a way, I mean, this is our tournament, obviously. There was no such reaction. We did not keep our head. A lot of the challenges were rash out of frustration, whether it was Bellingham, whether it was Rudiger, whether it was Carvajal. We had no production from the wingbacks tonight. Fran Garcia came in for at left back for Ferland Mendy, tried to provide a spark. But I don't even want to single those two out because although they were poor, I don't think there was any good player today. Ironically, I actually thought in his first game back after all this time, and despite that handball at the end of the first half, which ultimately led to our loss with the Jonathan David penalty, shout out to Canada. I did not. I'm all for cheering for Canada, but not today. I actually thought he was one of the bright spots, despite that handball. It was an impressive showing on his first game back in that first half. But there wasn't really anything to take away from this game. There's no real standout performer. There was nothing to really write home about. And I guess, just speaking off the cuff here again, from a tactical side of things, this is finally this season we get to see for the first time the quartet, right? The four dynamic midfielders, the four two-way box-to-box midfielders, the positionless, the versatile, the dynamic, the athletic, the talented, the young midfield quartet of Bellingham, Camavinga, and Tchouaméni and Fede Valverde. We finally saw that today. Ancelotti has said so many times this season that there is no replacing Cruz. He said this again yesterday. We have to find another way to play. There's no such thing as replacing Cruz. We have to just play a different way. We have to play more vertical, etc. What we saw today is maybe a warning sign of, like, you might need to find the closest player like Cruz. And I'm not even talking about ball progression. There's the ball progression side of things, yes. But Cruz had a leadership to him, a composure to him, a cold blood to him, the ability to slow down games and play in slow motion that calmed the team down in those situations. I think that's the side of Cruz that we might actually be missing more so than the progressive passing, more so than his ability to escape pressure. It might just be his cold blood and his leadership and the ability to slow down time in those situations. That's actually what we're missing, I think. Nevertheless, we had the midfield quartet all in the field today. And here's what surprised me. Because in a game where you don't play Rodrigo, and Ancelotti's probably speaking right now, so I'll see if he has an explanation for the Rodrigo not playing in this game. Off the bat, I'm going to assume it was rest. We had scheduled rest for Vinicius and now scheduled rest for Rodrigo. I'm assuming that. I could be wrong. I'll see what Carlos says in a second. But with Rodrigo not in the field, we had no production on the right wing up until Ancelotti started making subs, bringing Modric on. He got in that right half space, and then Goulet came on, and that became a little bit more symmetrical. But I'm a little bit surprised that in a game where you didn't have Rodrigo, plus you have all four of those midfielders, you couldn't get Fede Valverde up the field. Bellingham was basically playing left back, like, in the entire first half. He was getting up the field a lot, but he was actually basically, like, so many of his challenges were just the left back position, which this is the age-old Bellingham debate of, like, okay, he can do everything. He can play defense. He can play this position, that position. But really, do we want him to be exerting this much energy at so many different things? Maybe we do need to give him a more defined role. At best, give him a fluid role, but maybe higher up the pitch. Or we always just assume, like, when you have these four midfielders on the field, it would lessen the burden on all four of them, right? Tchouaméni would have a more defined role. He could be interchangeable with Camavinga. They could sometimes drop in the double pivot. They could sometimes switch positions. Camavinga could carry the ball forward. He can get between the lines. Bellingham has less to do defensively because Camavinga is there. Fede Valverde can get up the pitch more because he's such a dangerous weapon and such an asset when he drives the ball forward. We didn't see any of that today, which surprised me. And I think that's something that they have to look at. So there's the tactical side of things. There's the lineup side of things. There's the mental side of things. There's the physical side of things. I think rather than talking about, like, oh, the formation should have been this, the lineup should have been this, I think if you just use this same midfield, you need to get them to function differently. You need to get them more clearly defined roles, and you need to afford Fede Valverde getting higher up the pitch. You need to unchain Bellingham from a lot of the defensive responsibilities to make this function a little bit better. So that was one thing. I also think that, I guess I was just surprised that Vinny was as quiet as he was. Mbappe, when he came in, it was clear like he just didn't look ready. His touches were off. His passes were off. Endrick, still incredibly raw. I don't necessarily blame him for that. Tonight he actually became the youngest player in Real Madrid history surpassing Raul uh, to make a starting debut as a Real Madrid player in the Champions League. So I'm not going to sit here and just blame a kid for all this. But certainly, like, we went basically a 4-4-2 behind the ball with Rodrigo and Endrick up top. We had very little width on the right until the second half because Rodrigo was not in the field and we weren't setting Fede Valverde up there. And we just had no answer to Lille, like, who were going into this 5-3-2 mid block and baiting us to play these long passes over the top. And they just recovered so quickly. And I don't know. I again, like, talking about all these tactical things almost seems silly because there was another aspect of it that wasn't tactical. It was we were getting bullied. We were just getting outmatched physically on several occasions. And we were losing our heads. Again, like Rudiger, Bellingham, these flying challenges out of frustration, Jonathan David flicking the ball over Camavinga's head and Fede Valverde getting turned on the wing. And I just think that it was off. Everything was off today. And I don't really know how to explain it. If you want me to talk to you and make anyone feel better, and maybe talk about the glass half full side of things, it's that you just have to hope that we're getting it out of our system early. I'd rather have a bad loss like this away from home now and possibly serve it as a wake-up call than to have it later down the line in the Champions League knockout stages. And, maybe we just needed something like heavier than this because it didn't feel like just a loss. Like, there is losing 1-0 when you played really well, you got unlucky, okay, you conceded a penalty. But then there's this way of losing 1-0 and being so outplayed and humbled that sometimes you just need this to kick you in the ass and have a really, really long, hard look about how this team is functioning. So you just hope that this is a wake-up call, okay? I'm a little bit behind on some super chats. I'll take them in a second. I'm also just going to see if I can get Ancelotti's post-game quotes before I do that, if he's spoken already. Sometimes after games like this, he actually takes his time to come out of the locker room. Here we go. Ancelotti says, the sadness I feel is because you can lose because this is sports, but today we just did not have a good feeling and I am worried. Yeah, I think that's how all of us feel. So it's good that he's acknowledging that. We have the resources to learn and improve. We have to fix things quickly. We have played many times on Sunday and Wednesday. Today was not a good night. We have to improve on nothing more. Okay. I mean, everybody is in a crazy schedule right now. I don't think that's an excuse. Okay. Analysis on Bellingham. Ancelotti says Bellingham is glued to the sideline when we don't have the ball. But for the rest, it's the same as last year. It hasn't changed. I think it's not enough to talk about the issue to fix. If it were that way, it would be easy. There is a dynamic that needs to be improved. It's not enough just to talk. I think the team was improving, and this is a step backwards. I mean, I think if the team was improving, like, I guess 2 games ago against Alaves, up until the point where we were up 3-0, that's probably that was heading into a good direction. And then there was the collapse at the end of that. And then there was the collapse at the end of the Atletico game. And then this, which was a disaster from 1 to 90. I mean, look, there was like a 2, 3, 4 minute surge starting at minute 87, which was far too late to even begin to find a reaction. Quite frankly, I actually am a little bit surprised because, like, a couple of those chances at the very, very end, I thought were going in the back of the net. I was like, had like the Goulier header, then the Bellingham rebound. Goulier, by the way, who I thought actually provided some good touches on the right when he came in off the bench. That last header he had, he needed to just do better on that one. Like, you need to put your neck, you need to dive into that and put some full force power behind it. So despite having an absolute disastrous performance, they actually almost scored at the end, which, again, even if they did, I don't think it would have really changed our conversation. I think everyone was so disappointed that, like, even if you fought and clawed back to a result at the very end, it wouldn't have changed how disastrous the performance was. Since I'm just rambling here, I just remembered Luka Modric he's just a step slow. And it pains me to talk this way about such a legend, in my opinion, the greatest central midfielder in club history, the man I named my first son after. um, I remember in Ramos's last season with us, there was one play, and I can't remember which team it was against. It was away from home, and it was during the pandemic. It was behind closed doors, and you could just see like he was a step slow, like he could not get to the ball before his man, and he was laboring. And that's when I first noticed, like, okay, he's not physically the same player he used to be at that time. I saw that with Modric today, and I've kind of been seeing it over time, but today was the first time I was like, wow, he just would have gotten to that if he was younger, and he can't. And he couldn't. And then, like, seconds after I noticed that, Carvajal overhit a pass to Modric, and it was like he has no chance of catching up to that. He just can't. And it's kind of sad to see. Having said that, I thought he was at least positive, trying to do the right things, trying to make those runs to the right half space, which didn't exist in the first half. But it was kind of sad to see him in that state. Vinicius, we didn't get anything from him all game. Again, I said Mbappe pour off the bench. Endrick, I suppose, worked hard. He had that one chance where Camavinga won the ball, carries it, gets past his man, but shoots right at the goalkeeper. I'm going to take some super chats before I dive into anything else. Mr. Sushi 22 says, I blame the players more than anyone. No effort. I'm reading Phil Jackson's book right now, 11 Rings, arguably the greatest coach in NBA history. And he talks about, like, with that Bulls team, there were performances like this where everybody just showed up for whatever reason. And there was always something to trace it back to, whether it was what the team did the night before, etc. And he says, like, often what happened in those particular situations, it was a rallying point for the team. They had hit a certain rock bottom for them where they had to call a team meeting, they had to regroup, they had to air it out, they had to be very transparent, call each other out, and then they would go on a winning run. I hope this is that. Mr. Sushi. But again, I didn't see really anything positive from today's game. And what I did, the minimal stuff I did, I think I mentioned it. Mr. Sushi also says, I know people don't like him, but we need a player like Ceballos. What is Carlos supposed to do when his players don't fight? Ceballos' profile actually helps in games like this. But again, while that might be true, Mr. Sushi, I question that, like, if any single individual player would have actually made the difference today, because it seemed to me something different. It was a tactical mess. It was a mess mentally, physically. Something was off. And I don't think Ceballos is going to turn this game on its head either. In theory, this conversation, yeah, he would help with the ball progression and the fight and the intensity and the pressing, etc., the tracking maybe. But I don't know if he fundamentally solves what happened today, because how many times have we come here and sat here and said, if only we had this player, if only we had that player. At some point, like, if you say that all the time, it's not an issue of the players. So I'll just put that out there. Jeff Soa says, why do we not blame Lotti, I assume you mean Ancelotti, for how he's mismanaged the loss of Cruz? He has talked about adjusting to players you have, but I don't see it. Yeah, I don't think he's figured it out yet, Jeff. I think that's true. I think we all came to the conclusion before the season started that this is probably the best squad in Europe. There's maybe one other team that can compete with that title. And when you have this many great players, you need to make this look way better than it is. So something is off. That's on Ancelotti to figure it out. Yalim says, I have watched enough football to know every team needs an artist like KDB, Ozil, Kaká, Messi, etc. Guess who can be that player for Real Madrid? Yeah, but so, like, when you're watching this game, one of the things among many you see is that, like, okay, what if we just had someone high up the pitch between the lines helping us pull strings together, getting everyone involved, getting everyone touches in meaningful zones? Of course, that player is Bellingham. We have him. But as I said earlier in the podcast, I was very surprised that when we had all four of those dynamic midfielders on the field, we had chained Bellingham to such a deep role. And quite frankly, Bellingham did not look good today either when he got on the ball. So I think it was also like we can talk about, oh, this player is missing and this today something was off today. I can't really explain it. Maybe you guys know what I'm talking about and you don't need me to verbalize it because you felt it too. But something was off, and it wasn't like we need this player or that player. Something was really off today with our fight and with our body language. Miggs says lack of ideas plus creativity, lack of quick 1-2s between the lines, lack of precision in the passing, unable to win a lot of 50-50 balls. Mbappe looked lost, awful. Only bright spot was Arda. He should have come on much sooner. Yeah, Arda was provided some really good touches on the right side, I thought. I don't know if I can really, Miggs, thank you so much for the donation. I don't really know if I can touch more on those items that you said necessarily. There was a lack of driving the ball forward. There was a lack of movement off the ball. Today actually almost felt too rigid, whereas in other games we had too much fluidity. And the Mbappe point, like, to me, he just did not look ready to play this game. It looked like he wasn't 100%, and it was very visible. Jeff Soa says, why do patrons have to pay for super chats? Jeff, you honestly don't have to pay for anything if you don't want to, but I can't read any other comments. That's the reality. There are like over 200 unread items in the chat, and I just realistically cannot read the chat. That's why. So if you really, really feel strongly, thank you for the super chat. And I don't really know what else to say, but as always, like, you can jump on the Zoom calls we do for members, or you can submit your question to the mailbag that Lucas and I do once a week. Okay, bro? And Corgiotti says Vinny was quiet. Carvajal probably our best today. I think so. The the quote Carvajal was our best today, I seems very different than the way I saw it. I thought he was pretty poor. Let's look at how involved Vinny actually was. Let's look at this together. So Vinicius tonight, gotta scroll. Where is he? 57 touches, 4 shots, 2 key passes, completed 70% of his passes. These 4 shots, I'm struggling to remember them, to be quite honest with you. Maybe they were clear cut, or maybe they were not. For some reason I just can't remember it. So that actually surprised me. I thought it would have been way less. 3 completed dribbles. He did kind of come alive at the end there in the last 3-4 minutes. Look at this. Bellingham had 7 tackles. Carvajal 5 tackles, 3 interceptions. Yeah, this was a rough watch, guys. Rough watch. Rudiger 5 of 9 long balls. I will say one positive item of Rudiger was that a couple times where you did attempt long balls over the top of Lille's defensive line, it seemed to give them problems, but we didn't really go back to it enough. I thought we could have done that more. What other post-game quotes did I miss? Ancelotti says we have to improve. It's complicated. Everything went quite badly. It was difficult for us to do everything. We don't have to throw everything away, and we have to keep a cool head. The feeling is that we are having trouble generating chances, creating. Possession has been slow with few ideas. Yeah, that possession has been slow. Like, there is a lack of just incisiveness and quick, direct football, which Real Madrid is most known for. He also says we need to play more vertically. Yeah. Fran Garcia said some stuff. Wasn't our best game. We need to clear our heads. Okay. I also just wanted to check some data before I get to super chats. Just give me 1 second. What is scroll all the way down to the Lille 1, Real Madrid no. XG 1.31. We had an XG of 2.6. Interesting. That's quite high for such a lifeless performance where we didn't generate much. I'm going to assume that it was partly like the flurry at the end where we had that huge Goulier chance plus the Bellingham rebound, and then probably throw in Endrick's chance at the very beginning of the game. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think even if one of those went in, I don't think it would have necessarily changed our analysis of this game, which was horrendous. Nathan Hermes says, how many shit performances by Chouameni before we bench him? Fede is killing himself sprinting and he can't be bothered to chase back. It's shameful. I've said this. I've said this on one of the podcasts recently. I had a clip about it that did the rounds on social media today, that I haven't been impressed with Chouameni this season. It's not to say, like, a lot of people like agreed. I think like 99% people agreed. Some also went as far as to say he should be sold. He's a disaster. Like, I want to just make it clear, I did not imply it to be that dramatic. I think that he can bounce back and have a very, very good Real Madrid career. But the reality is, right now, if you just analyze his performance, he hasn't been good. And I don't think he's been overburdened, because I've heard that rhetoric as well. All these players are being overburdened. Realistically speaking, it's not just the overburdened stuff. It's that some of the fundamentals are escaping him. Having said that, today, I don't think he was the main problem. There was a ton of problems and everyone was bad. But I do think you can do one thing, which is just remind him like about the amount of competition that he has. And now that Camavinga's back, I think he could use at least one game of like Camavinga takes the anchor role and you do Fede plus whoever in midfield. And, you know, for all the talk about the lineup, that final lineup spot being between Camavinga and Rodrigo, we have to throw Chouameni's name into the mix, in my opinion. And you might even land on something like, at least try it out with Camavinga, Fede, Bellingham, Rodrigo, Vinny, and Mbappe, and just see where you land with that. Put Bellingham in an 8 role, Camavinga as the 6, Fede on the right side of him, and then have your attacking trio. It might be a good balance to go a little bit more symmetrical and a little bit more just production on the wings. And your midfield is safe with those 3 as well. I think it'd be worth a look. I think Chouameni just kind of needs to remind that there's competition, and maybe that'll light something in him. Avwunu says, we are a poorly coached side. Vinny, Mbappe, and Endrick are bad at pressing. Ball progression is bad. Off-ball movement lackluster. Long passing poor. I think with the pressing thing is something that we've talked about a lot this season. And today, like, I said this many times, like, just stop pressing. There's no point. Like, there's no need to press if you can't do it. If you do it half-assed, then you're going to run into a lot of defensive problems. You're going to basically turn yourself into a defensive sieve. You're going to test your backline and midfield a lot if you can't press. Just go into a mid-block. Today, we pressed on goal kicks. We did some counter-pressing. That was okay. One of our goal kick pressing sequences was actually good, and Lille had like a fluke touch, and they broke it. But you're right, though. The pressing has been poor, and that's why I have said many times, just focus on pressing strategically on goal kicks and counter press. But when you press this much, 1 or 2 passes, you're screwed. You're broken through completely. RXSSI says, I'm saying it, Ancelotti can't take us to our ceiling. Tactically outclass anytime we play a decent opponent. No system, patterns of play, press. Look, I know it's easy to pile up on Carlo now. I know it is. If anyone has earned the benefit of the doubt to figure this out, it's him. How many times did he reinvent the team last season amid injury crisis after injury crisis after injury crisis after injury crisis? Given the benefit of the doubt. Has it been good now? No, it hasn't. So don't misquote me. But to say that this is the Real Madrid finished product, I think would be jumping the gun. Nishlish Patel says, this game worried me a lot because I felt the DNA was just gone. I felt like I was just watching some football match. No Real Madrid there whatsoever. Yeah, I mentioned this at the top of the show. This felt like very anti-Real Madrid Champions League DNA in the sense that the fight was so bad, the reaction was so bad, and our heads were so gone that usually we at least keep the heads part. We did not keep our head at all. Which again, I'll say it one more time. Thank God that this loss came now, and hopefully is not later on when the season is on the line. Geez, this entire super chat is a Ancelotti pylon session. Alfredo6 says we have our Ten Hag and Ancelotti. Keon, thank you for not trying to excuse this loss. Ancelotti is tired, guys. We are all worried. Carlo needs to start coaching and stop maintaining a Boy Scout club. Guys, with this Ancelotti stuff, I just don't know how much I can continually repeat myself. So I might just read some of these super chats without responding to all of them. But oh my God, there's so many super chats left. I'm just gonna take a quick, not a break from the podcast, but I'm just gonna go over my notes, see if I missed anything there. Yeah, look, honestly, I don't know if I thought Militao was poor. I thought Rudiger, he had a couple good step-up interventions, some good passing, long-range passing, but there's not like I can literally not sit here and just provide any more tactical analysis or say this player was good, this player was bad. I don't know if there's anything else to say in that front. So maybe I will just stick to the super chats. Mr. Sushi is asking what the XG was. We didn't try a long shot. Yeah, I went over this. Obviously, that came in before the super chat, I'm assuming. So it was like 2.6, I think, or whatever I said earlier. Mig says, if Ancelotti can't come up with an alternative to Cruz ball within a reasonable amount of time, then we need to either find that new Cruz quick or move on from Ancelotti. There's too much slow lateral passing right now. Yeah, I don't know how much we can discuss this either, Migs. Like, I honestly don't. Like, I agree with you. I think we need to find a solution. We need to find it quick. Ancelotti keeps saying we need to play more vertical. We need to play a different style without Cruz. So we got to see what that is, right? We just have to see it at this point. So I would not be shocked. I'm not saying my opinion on this. I'm just saying what I think will actually happen. I will not be shocked if this Carlos solution to this is just low block, counterattack, and just take advantage of the transition speed of Vinny, Rodrigo, and Mbappe and Jude. I would not be surprised if that is where we land. Yalam is back to say play more vertically, incisive pass, quick direct football. Only if we had a player like Arda Güler on the bench. Yes, Yalam, I know you're part of the Turkish cult. Respect, bro. I love the Turkish fan base. And this is, I think, in reference to Ancelotti's quotes after the game where he says we need to do all this. And we all saw, put it this way. Look, I co-sign in a lot of ways because I don't really know what Arda has done to be punished with this amount of playing time only. Ancelotti did state yesterday that, like, look, Güler has played much more than he did at this stage last season. Well, of course, that's true because of the injuries. And his long-term development plan for Güler is what it is. But I think he provides a lot of value on the field, a lot. And I have said this many times, like his player profile is a solution to get in between the lines a little bit more and provide something different, a different, less predictable approach to what we already have in the line-breaking dribblers. Jeff says, I think Alaba will help the CDM role and compete. Certainly, like, I mean, of all the talk about the progressive passing we miss, of course, we miss Alaba a lot from a couple of years ago. You got to put your hands together and pray that we can get the old Alaba. No question. Patrick Udayafati says, I don't want to put the blame on Tchouaméni, but at the base of midfield, he takes too many touches on the ball. Defensively looks lost at times. I think it, to me, more so than sometimes when he loses focus on the ball, the positioning and the lack of tracking of runners into the box has had me worried for a while. And again, when you're the team's anchor, like, I know we've been blessed with Casemiro and stuff, and we had our complaints about him with his press resistancy. But one thing he was elite, nay, generational at, was his ball winning and his tracking. Like if he wanted to hunt you down and make sure you don't get a sniff of action on the ball, he would do that. And so Chouameni is more modern, kind of like ball playing DM in that sense. But right now, he just, again, he needs to improve. He needs to improve. I don't know. I don't know how much more I can say about it, but he needs to improve. Flame of Anor says, let's agree this should be Ancelotti's last season. Ancelotti's favorite score is 0-0. Why double pivot against Lille? Why is Carvajal our third attacker? Mig says, yeah, I'm starting to think Chouameni is our center back of the future. He definitely does not look like himself at CDM right now. Chouameni provided us with some incredible minutes at center back last season. It should be noted. Last season, especially that Leipzig game, away to Leipzig, and I remember being there just being like, if it wasn't for Chouameni and Andre Lunin that night, that could have been much worse. But it was salvaged by those two plus a Brahim Diaz solo golazo. And Chouameni was playing center back that night. And he has provided a lot of great minutes at center back. I don't know. That has to be a conversation between him and Ancelotti. From what we know, he doesn't like playing there. And I don't think he's going to convert to center back. I think it's going to be a situational thing for him. Sagnik says, Perez packed the team with too many athletes. Where are the visionaries, the artists? We are moving like a Premier League team. Also, rest on GOAT Luca. Look, Florentino Perez is not the scout. The scout rightfully went and scouted some of the best young players in the world, and we rightfully signed him. We rightfully signed them. These are all great players. We are not going to regret signing these guys. There's nothing wrong with these signings. These are awesome players to have in your squad. Some of these are generational. Some of these are Ballon d'Or winners. And some of them are Ballon d'Or contenders. I have no issue with that side of it. The visionaries and the artists, look, there are different eras in football. Not all the time are you going to have the perfect player you want in your squad. Sometimes you rely on market opportunities. Sometimes you try to scout these players. Sometimes you try to buy them. And right now, this is the situation. And I said this earlier, I think Bellingham is such a player. So let's figure out the surrounding pieces. Let's figure out how to maximize this squad. Yeah, I miss the elegant dancers. I miss the Zidans. I miss the Ozils. I miss whatever other name, younger Modric, Kroos. But we have a great squad. This is a very salvageable situation. And I stand by that. Come back to this. I stand by it. Certainly, at least like what we have in the squad. How many managers do you think would be ready to trade squads with us right now? I'm going to guess 99.9%. Possibly 100. I skipped one there. And Corgiotti has a couple. So one, our midfield gets bypassed too easily out of possession, but we take too long in midfield on our counters. Opposition defense gets time to reorganize. Yeah, the amount of times the opposition has had time to recover and defend in transition is, I think, a testament to how slow we've been in transition. And he also says, good thing we didn't, quote unquote, provoke the fans today. Listen, guys, I know this was tough. I will say it again. You just have to hope that we got it out of our system, or at least we're getting it out of our system. And this terrible, terrible performance and this really, really bad loss serves as a rallying point for the team. And it doesn't, rather than having a spiraling effect of demoralization, it has the opposite effect. Let's hope Camavinga can integrate himself. Let's hope that everything starts clicking. Mbappe gets into match fitness. And by the way, I actually don't think I got the answer about Rodrigo that I was hoping to find in the post-game presser. So, yeah, I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Guys, if you want to join Lucas and I this week, and if you want to join Matt and I this week, because I think they have a lot of great analysis to provide that I didn't today. I'd love to see you guys tomorrow and Friday for our members. So just click join underneath this video or hit the YouTube memberships tab, or go to patreon.com/managing Madrid. We'll see you there. That's where we're very active. Here you can see what it looks like. And there's just so much content we put up for our members. We love to meet you guys. And we also put up a schedule for our podcast for the next week or so. It's jam-packed. Angelo and I will also be back. Leah and I will also be back. And we're also doing a Twitter audio spaces session. So if you're on Twitter, you can actually join us next week. It's in the calendar. Just go click on it, or you can go on my profile on Twitter, and you can join me. You can unmute your mic. That's a great, Jeff was asking earlier, why do patrons have to pay? This is a great place to I go and answer questions. You just raise your hand and you tell me what was on your mind. You can ask me a question. You can talk to me, whatever you want. You can argue with me, debate with me. That's totally cool. You can do that on Twitter audio spaces. And one more thing, as you guys may have seen, I know the Managing Madrid podcast has way more listeners than Churros y Tácticas, but we did it kind of differently last time, where Diego recorded his version of the weekend and the events about Courtois and Atletico. And if you haven't listened to it yet, you might imagine what Diego's take on it was. So I reacted to it. I watched it for the first time and I reacted to it, and people seem to like that a lot. And this is just a reminder. If you guys want me to do more videos where I react to different football takes, if there's a bad football take that you just hate and you want me to dunk on, or it's like a really good football take that you want me to react to, send it to me on Instagram. I'm compiling them all right now and basically putting them in a doc. And then when I have a few of these, I'm going to just do an episode where I react to different football takes from around the internet. I'm talking about videos, like not tweets and stuff. I don't care about tweets, but like if there's like a video of an analysis, a bad one or a good one, I'm going to react to it. Thank you guys for already sending me so many. You can see my Instagram on the bottom there, Kiyanso, Kiyanso. That's the handle. Just DM me the clip you want me to react to. Okay, I would appreciate that. Listen, guys, it was a pleasure. Over 400 chats today. Thank you for keeping this stream going. Thank you for all the super chats. I'm honestly overwhelmed. There was so many. I really, really appreciate all of that, guys. And I wish I could have given better answers to every single one. But I just didn't really know what else to say. I know you guys wanted me to dunk on Ancelotti as much as possible, and there's only so much I can say to with regards to that. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Much love. Hala Madrid. Peace out.